if you're Mormon and you grew up outside of America, making it to Utah, I tell you, it's like Mecca. All my life, I wanted to come to Mecca. Yes, even after I realized I was different. If anything, I wanted to come even more because I thought, well, I believed that Mecca could fix me. And so it was hard, going to a place you dream of and then finding out that your dream was wrong. People ask me, so what's it like being LGBT at BYU? On a lighter note, it kind of goes like this. To the straight kids, they say, study, but don't forget to date. To LGBT kids, they say, study. And when you're done, study some more. It's funny when people think being Asian is what makes me so good at school. Little do they know, I'm just the best of both worlds. A Gaysian. But on a more serious note, as many of you might imagine, being at BYU is at best an environment that forces you to confront what it means to be an LGBT Mormon. And if you're lucky, you get out alive. At worst, it is a place that keeps hushed the silent cries of anxiety, depression, and suicide. I have experienced both the best and the worst. Now, I'd like to share 2 things that have helped me to cope. Well, survive, really. The first is gratitude. For as many boxes of marginalized, misunderstood, and minority statuses I could easily check off, I've come to realize that I can check off just as many boxes of privileges and blessings. Yes, it's hard being at BYU, but I've come to discover how strong I can be, even though there are still many days where I do not feel like it. I am grateful for opportunities to become involved, even when I was in a closet, because there were people who recognized my filmmaking abilities and gave me a chance to be empowered and have a sense of purpose instead of feeling helpless. For this, I have USGA to thank. Understanding same-gender attraction. USGA is BYU's unofficial support group for LGBT students. Because of the change makers who came before me and reached out to me, now I can do the same for others. I am grateful to be a student at BYU because of the excellent education that I do receive that millions of people across the world do not have. And now I can use that education to make a meaningful difference. I feel so incredibly blessed that when I finally came out 2 years ago, my very Asian, conservative, Asian Mormon parents, who once never spoke a word about our kind, still love me, even if they don't understand everything yet, and I know they are trying. I am grateful to be an LGBT Mormon because owing to these experiences, I have gained perspective and empathy for others. Well, speaking of empathy, this is the second thing that has really helped keep me going. Through my experience, I've come to discover that there is a very, very, very fine line between hope and denial, and it can drive a person crazy. So many days I feel like what I call my Peter Pan analogy, the boy who couldn't grow up. This is because a large part of growing up in Mormon culture is dating, getting engaged, getting married, and having children. And if you can't grow up, you can't move on, and you watch everyone else progress on except you. I share this because I found that my Peter Pan analogy has come to resonate with a lot of unmarried individuals in the church, both LGBT and straight. An example is someone whom I hold very, very, very dear to me, and he too goes to BYU. He's not gay, but he too struggles to feel complete as an unmarried Mormon. At the same time, it is also very hard to feel empathy for the very same individual who, in response to a prompt for a class paper, If you could change one thing in the American Constitution, what would it be? Wrote. I would outlaw same-sex marriage in every state from ever happening. Truth is, it is much easier to write someone off simply because they don't agree with and accept everything that you are. The bigger truth is, I cannot deny how much I know this individual genuinely loves me and how much he has done for me. Yes, even while he disagrees and it really hurts. I recognize that many of us, most of us, are products of society, religion, education, family upbringing, and life experience. I know my family thinks the way they do because of where they come from. In the same way, they would be very different people if they did not come from those places. And while this doesn't always help to make things better, empathy helps keep me from feeling bitter. And the scary truth is, I would never know what I would be like towards LGBT individuals if I was a straight Mormon person myself, because I'm not. So after everything I've said concerning survival as an LGBT Mormon, what else can we do to make things even better from here? How can we go from surviving to thriving? And along the way, include our friends and allies who want to be part of our journey as well. One of the hardest things for me growing up in a very conservative society of Singapore was struggling with something I didn't even have a word for. And all I knew was that anything that was different from what the church taught you and what your parents taught you was probably wrong. And that was a very hard way to live. And so as much as I like to think that both my Asian and Mormon culture have progressed decently down this road, there is still so much to be done to eradicate invisibility. And so when my friends ask me, what can I do? I tell them, talk about us. Talk about us openly, honestly, and kindly. Tell your children we exist. Tell them early. Because you will never know if your child might be LGBT. And if they are, they will know that they can come talk to you. And if they aren't, they will emulate your examples of the kind ways you speak of and treat others. I know it is hard and it is tiring. But the only way things are going to get better is if we keep doing something about it, as I'm sure many of you have. For me, shortly after the same-sex marriage law was legalized across the United States, Facebook exploded with many hurtful comments made by many Mormon friends I had, and still have. But in that moment, I realized that I could no longer remain silent beyond that of personal and private conversations. It has been pain, empathy, and gratitude for those who have paved and braved the way before me that have resulted in the following poem I wrote. It encompasses my experience and struggles as an LGBT Mormon. Should I attempt to help others see when it's much easier to delete people from Facebook? It is getting really, really tiring. A recent change in law hasn't meant that people have changed their minds or opened their hearts. And that is why mine's still heavy. I hear cries of anger and hate, resentment only grow louder, harsher, because of our desire to love and be committed to another is labeled as signs of the last days. Our desire to care for another, weep for another, find joy in another, have a family with another, grow old with that other, is not deemed of the same worth, value, and quality as a straight other. Why are we reduced to animals? Why is our love only seen as a physical connection and not one that is also emotional, intellectual, mental, and yes, even spiritual, like yours? As someone once said, there is an illusion that homosexuals have sex and heterosexuals make love. That is completely untrue. Everyone wants to be loved. There is also a deep and painfully damaging belief that in no way can one love another so profoundly and still have a deep and close and loving relationship with God. That is why many of us feel like we have to choose. We are forced to choose between the two, between love and God, because they said wickedness never was happiness, and that is what our love is called, wicked. That is why so many leave the church or kill themselves. Ever wonder why sometimes students at BYU go missing, but no one talks about what happened? I know what the scriptures say. I know what the text is. I know what's on the paper. But how do you ignore the pleas in Christ of another human being, of someone so real and present who is begging you to see them as you see yourself, as you see your hopes and dreams of reaching the potential to be your better self because of the privilege and responsibility with which you have been blessed with to grow with another person and to grow with a family? Why do people preach personal revelation, yet discount that of others? Why are human beings given the ability to love, but some of us are told we can't? We hear the church say, yes, we want you here, yet by the acts of love, or rather, by the lack of it, we see otherwise. And they don't see some of us desperately still hanging on, grabbing at the rope that's running out, as we throw our fingers at what fibers of reasons that's left for us to stay. And while we're dangling there, midway up that tower we call celestial kingdom, the silent treatment of our presence at church on Sundays stretch those fibers thinner and thinner as we sit there and listen to the call of dating and marriage over and over and over again. We feel our fingers being pried from those fibers, slowly but surely. You know, it's hard to hang on when you feel so forced out. At the end of the day, when it gets really rough, all I know is that you wouldn't be saying the things that you are saying now if you were gay like me. And I can only hope that I would be as compassionate and empathetic as I am now if I was straight like you. I've struggled for a long time now to see how we fit into the plan of happiness, because sometimes it really feels like the plan of straightness, and we don't have a place here. It's easy to dish out church rhetoric, isn't it? Trust me, I know. I was born Mormon too. That's the end of the poem. To end, as much as I would like to caution others like me to greatly think over what it means to come to BYU, I know they're still going to come anyway, just as I have. Mormon, remember? And so while I clearly can't control the choices of others, what I can do is to help shape a Mormon Mecca that is more informed, more humble, more empathetic, more kind, more loving, more inclusive, more Christ-like. A Mormon Mecca that I had dreamed of when I first came here. I don't want the LGBT Mormons of the future to just survive. I want them to thrive. Thank you.